Hello? Hello?
Podcast Network Asia.
Hello and welcome to episode 234 of the 80%. This podcast episode is a bit different because we're uploading it as a video, which means it's available not only on podcast platforms but also on YouTube. Today, we're talking about something that affects us all, our relationship with credit. TransUnion Philippines has recently released their 2025 Credit Perception Index report, which reveals how Filipinos think and feel about credit, borrowing money, debt, and financial trust. Joining us in this episode is Peter Faulhaber, the President and CEO of TransUnion Philippines. Peter will help us unpack the findings in the Credit Perception Index report, what it tells us about the state of credit in the country, and what it means for everyday Filipinos like you and me. Are you ready to listen and learn? Let's go! Hi, I'm Fitz Villafuerte, a registered financial planner and the host of this podcast. I'm here to guide you through the essential mindset, habits, and strategies for achieving financial freedom. Thank you for joining me today. Let's start the show. Hello, everyone, listening to the 80% podcast. For this episode, we have a very special guest who will talk about a very interesting topic, something that would be useful to all of us, Filipinos. And let's all welcome Peter. Hello, Peter. Good afternoon.
Hi, Fitz. Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. My name is Peter Faulhaber. I'm the president and CEO of TransUnion Philippines. TransUnion is, we like to say, we're a global information and insights company, present in over 30 countries. Here in the Philippines, we're the first comprehensive private credit reference agency. So that basically means that we help financial institutions from banks, fintechs, digital banks, give you a credit score to help you borrow responsibly from them. And what we like to say in TransUnion is we want to help make trust possible between consumers like you and me, Fitz, and businesses, those banks and institutions that we borrow from. And so my role is to lead that locally, based here in the Philippines, with all of our partners helping promote what we call information for good.
Just a quick side note, this is not the first time that someone from TransUnion Philippines has joined the show. The first two times, our guest was Miss Pia Arellano. And if you missed those episodes, don't worry. I'll put a link to those episodes in the show notes. Now, back to our conversation with Peter. I've learned about TransUnion because I asked for my credit score through the Lista app. And that's honestly, that's how I learned about TransUnion. And you've been doing a study, the Credit Perception Index, for the past 3 years. And recently, you've come up with the 2025 results. So for those who are still unfamiliar about that, what is the Credit Perception Index?
Sure. So first of all, Fitz, thank you very much for pulling your own credit score. It's very important that, especially here in the Philippines where, credit score and people knowing their credit scores is not near as common as perhaps, back in the US, where I'm from. So that's a very good first step. And I'm sure we can get into more of that later. So the Credit Perception Index is a yearly survey that we launched in 2023 exclusively in the Philippines. It surveys over 1,000 Filipinos nationwide and asks them how they think and feel about credit. So their knowledge in it, their trust, openness, any hesitations, are they going to borrow more or less? What are they worried about? The reason we created this Credit Perception Index, or CPI as it's abbreviated, was really to help the industry and regulators to better understand Filipino consumers so that we can help the industry respond to their needs. And last point is that there's 7 different factors in the score. I won't go into too much of the methodology because it's quite a big survey, but we survey the concept of credit, product knowledge, trust, favorability, credit messaging, stigma, and reservations.
When we say credit, we're not just talking about credit cards, right? This also involves your loan products like your home loan, car loan, etc. What are the other forms of credit that you consider when measuring the CPI?
Yeah, that's correct. So any type of borrowing where a consumer like you and I, borrows from a financial institution. So credit card, personal loan, home loan, auto loan, salary or payday loans, BNPL, buy now pay later, which is very common. Micro loans, anything where you're borrowing money, from a formal financial institution and then ultimately paying it back would be covered here.
When we say credit perception index, we are measuring how Filipinos think about credit. Are they afraid of it? Are they open to it? Things like that, right? And you believe that by studying how Filipinos look at credit, it can help improve the services of financial institutions, but also help Filipinos increase their financial literacy by helping them understand how to leverage on credit, on their debts, so that they can tap into more financial opportunities. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So maybe just to give you one example. So like I said, so we've done the survey for 3 years in a row. And it's 7 different factors. There is an overall CPI score, as we call it, which this year was 73. Last year it was 74, so it was about the same, although it declined by 1. But the reasons why some of the numbers changed, I think, is particularly important, and I'll use an example in terms of how that then flows into both consumers and lenders. So trust in credit products. So do the people surveyed actually trust credit? Actually rose by 6 points, which is quite a big jump year over year. And we've actually seen that trend continue for 3 years now. And that shows that Filipinos are becoming more trusting of different types of credit products for borrowing. Now, within that survey, and there's 3 different types of populations. So we surveyed people who don't have a bank account, so unbanked. We surveyed people from traditional banks. And this year we carved out respondents on fintech in particular. Consumers who didn't have a bank account, so the unbanked, actually improved from 65 to 67, which is great. Fintech users, however, actually posted the highest score of 74, with 91% of those using at least one digital financial product. Now, this is interesting because how we use these results is when we go back to both our customers who are lenders as well as regulators, right? We can highlight that a lot of the initiatives that are happening in the industry around improving trust, improving knowledge of credit products, those are definitely increasing, and especially they're hitting the unbanked. And it now looks like fintech is also playing a key role in terms of that education and usage. Those are all key insights that will help those lenders actually deliver, the types of products and services that you and I ultimately want. And that's how we see the survey playing a key role in the economy here.
It's interesting that you decided to survey or to study a new segment, which are the fintech users. What was the reasoning there? Why did you decide to suddenly, let's do a new persona, a new group to study?
Yeah, so this is a good question. So the fintech users have been part of our survey for all 3 years, but we haven't carved them out as a separate group until now. I think the reason that we did that is quite obvious, given the prevalence of digital wallets, payments, and borrowing here in the Philippines. It's impossible to go a day without using GCash or Maya, right? It's very hard to sign up for things if we're not using a bank's app. And there's a huge amount of investment that's coming into the country in the fintech space, right? We've got at least 6 digital banks now. So we thought it was time to actually see what impact these new technologies were having on the end consumers, and that's why we carved them out. Whereas last year and the year before, they would have been subsumed in the overall population.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of my friends, we're almost cashless now. We just pay through our digital wallets. And even in the public markets or in
Mm.
bazaars, they all have those QR codes already. I remember years before, you just have to pay in cash, especially when you go to the market. But now, a lot of them uh, accept digital payments. When you say fintech users, does it automatically mean that they're also bank, or are there unbanked users but they are fintech users?
So fintech user would be anybody who has a financial product through a fintech. It doesn't have to be a bank account. It could
Mhm.
also be a lending or a BNPL product. However, one thing that we did find in our survey was that e-wallets have actually overtaken bank accounts as the first financial product for many Filipinos. Which, to be honest, again, having been here for over 6 years, I'm not surprised now for those same reasons that you mentioned. I think it's been very easy for everybody, to open accounts, to really start using and getting access to financial products through e-wallets.
Also, I've experienced some people who were afraid of technology, but because of the pandemic, where you really need to shop online, and the use of e-wallets really became very popular, they really had no choice but to learn how to buy online and to use those apps. And even my parents, who were really hesitant, they're very traditional, they just want to pay through cash or through credit card, are now enjoying using these fintech apps. You mentioned earlier that interest in learning more about credit products are rising. What do you think is the reason for this? What's driving this interest in learning all about these credit products?
There's a number of different factors at play. I think for starters, Philippines, the economy is a consumption driven economy, right? So it's September 8th, right? So we know Christmas has already started. Christmas in the malls is alive and well. We all love to eat, we love to shop, travel with relatives, go to movies. So I think by its nature, the Philippine economy is really consumption driven. And I think that the survey tells us that the Filipinos will continue they'll continue to want to borrow for some of those needs. And here, Fitz, I think it's important that one of your early questions asked about the different types of credit products. It's easy to get lost in different types of jargon and products, but ultimately, what credit is trying to do is trying to help somebody achieve an ambition that they have. So it could be a vacation that you're going to take with your family, right? And you'll be able to pay it off in several months, but you need the money now because the trip is coming up. It could be, paying for student bills, which again also come around in chunky amounts at a couple times per year. It could be that purchase that you want to do for Christmas. And so that access to credit, Filipinos, continue to tell us is important to them. And so that improved knowledge, that more exposure, fintech we talked about has made it more accessible. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about a variety of financial literacy and education campaigns that both government and the private sector have put in place to build confidence that we've actually seen show up in the results this year, where Filipinos are telling us they trust those institutions and they have a better perception of credit now.
Would you say that because times are hard recently, inflation is up, etc., that has also been the reason why people are more interested in these credit products, because they are thinking, aside from filling in the gap in their income, but it's also more of this is something that I can use in times of financial emergencies. Is that also a major reason for the interest?
I mean, while we did have that's a great question. While we did have over 1/3 of respondents tell us that they plan to use credit in the short term. At the same time, the population did tell us that they are the two negatives, if you will, that came back from the survey. The first was concern about high interest rates on the amount that they would borrow. And the second one is, concern around, fraud and scams, right? So yes, people want to use credit, but of course they want to borrow responsibly. They want to be able to pay it back, and they don't want to get scammed. So I think those are the biggest, concerns that, that came back from the survey.
Yeah, I understand that despite the growing interest, these stigmas and reservations do still remain. I have a friend who, until now, doesn't want a credit card, but his reason is because he doesn't want to go into credit or debt problems. But I tell him it's not really because of the credit card. It's the way he manages his money or the way he uses his credit card that will get him into trouble. If he doesn't know how to budget, then definitely he will get into debt problems. So I think some people do have these reservations in using credit because of, in general, they're not really familiar with the different types of credit.
So there definitely continues to be a stigma around credit. I know that my Tagalog is not very good, so apologies. But utang as a concept is still has quite a lot of stigma around it, and we have seen improvements in the CPI results this year around that. We've also seen respondents tell us that when they do borrow, and more than a third told us that they will, that their preference is to borrow from a formal financial institution as opposed to friends and family. Borrowing from friends and family has come down each of the past 3 years that we've surveyed, which we see as a good thing. And at the same time, we have trust in traditional lenders increasing. So I think those are both good developments, Fitz. But education around not just financial literacy, but also awareness around the importance of maintaining a budget, the importance around saving, the importance around managing your own finances. Those are just as important as credit. And it's important. Even though the survey didn't study it, we know from talking to the industry, it's really important that when people do take out a loan, whether it's your friend that may want or need a credit card, or whether it's somebody that wants an auto loan, the key thing is for somebody to borrow an amount that they can repay. And similarly for the person lending the money, they need to make sure that when they lend Peter the money, that Peter can pay them back, right? Because neither side wants to lose money. And I think that the with things like CPI and this concept we have in TU called information for good, we sort of feel like we're the broker. We're trying to help the industry balance those two relationships, where when you get your credit report, right, you will see that things that you've borrowed, you'll see how often you paid, you'll see the products you hold. The lender will see the same thing, and then they'll make a good decision on whether Peter needs another credit card or that auto loan. It is a journey. There's not a perfect one size fits all for everyone, and there'll be some people who choose not to take credit, just as there's some people who they save everything they make, and there's other people that will spend everything they make.
It was an interesting result of the report or the survey that you had, that more Filipinos are choosing to borrow from financial institutions instead of their family and friends, because I always tell people that you're not just borrowing money from your family or relatives or friends, because you're also putting your relationship on the line there. Because I've seen many friendships ended because of utang, or because of they could not pay back the money that they borrowed. One of the reasons why people are more interested in borrowing from financial institutions, I think, is because information about it is more accessible now across all population, general, the unbanked, and the fintech. They do get information about these credit products through social media. Do you think financial institutions should invest more in doing information campaign through social media so that more consumers are educated about not just credit but about personal finances in general?
I think that everybody, everybody in the financial services industry should do, more communication and education across all channels. So whether it's a podcast, print media, social media, there's a lot more out there today than there was, when I was here 6 years ago, and that goes across the piece from traditional banks, who are much more digital now than they were 6 years ago, to fintechs like we spoke about before. So I think there's a role for everybody to play across all channels, and I think certainly, with the importance of social media, to the Philippines, I think it is a great channel to get more messaging out. I think one of my favorite stats from a couple years ago is I think Philippines is one of the top, 2 countries in the world in Facebook usage in terms of like hours per day, right? So love it or hate it, it's a really important communication channel for everybody to use.
I've also noticed that a lot of people are really doing their shopping online. A lot of my friends don't even go to the malls anymore. If they need something, they check online first, no? The shopping apps first. And for a lot of them, and even me, that's when I learned that people are not really very familiar about the BNPL or buy now pay later scheme, which has been something that a lot of these shopping apps are now incorporating when you're checking out. So how has digital banking and these fintech products changed the way Filipinos access and perceive credit?
Yeah, and certainly it's become a lot easier, and I think BNPL or buy now pay later is it's another form of credit, right? It's just it's a type of loan structured in a different way that allows people to to buy the purchase that they're trying to make now and then pay back in installments essentially. And the convenience with it's been integrated into apps, I think has made it very easily, but I think it's also fit that niche, in the Philippines, like we talked about before, around, we love to shop, we love to eat out, we love to go to movies, travel, and having that convenience is important. I think what was interesting in the CPI survey this year, and we had a specific question on what types of products do consumers, trust the most. And interestingly enough, it was products like BNPL and installment that actually customers said they had more trust in than traditional products like credit cards and standard term personal loans. Now that I think is a really interesting finding, because several years ago BNPL didn't really didn't exist, and certainly from a traditional lender, most of their lending would have been in credit cards and personal loans. So to have BNPL actually be more trusted now, I think probably just shows, how much, your friends that are shopping on the app or me and my wife doing something similar, rely on those providers in the app, whereas a few years ago it didn't exist.
When it comes to the broader impact on the Philippine economy, we've been talking about consumers' perception on credit in general, but how does one's perception or a country's perception on credit impact the Philippine economy?
Sure. So consumer spending is a very key part of the economy and GDP for the Philippines. I think improving credit perception overall really translates into responsible borrowing from from consumers like me, through those formal channels, and puts less reliance on informal lending, whether it's through relatives, friends, or otherwise. And I think banking is really about trust, right? And once you have that trust, it then allows individuals to borrow, and they know that they'll be able to pay it back, through the right channels, which will then help, development of the country. For the economy, it means more resilience and more inclusive growth, because more Filipinos can then participate in formal finance, which is really the goal of the industry right now. And that that confidence, gives Filipinos, I think, it allows it to overcome that stigma that, the credit can be used safely. There are opportunities that are within reach, whether they're short-term or long-term, and that, each Filipino's financial choices do contribute to their family's progress. So underlying all of this, Fitz, is really trust, is really the bedrock of our industry. And so at TransUnion Philippines, we see that improving credit perception, not just as a positive indicator of growing financial awareness, but as a stepping stone towards greater financial inclusion and financial literacy.
And given that, how do you see credit perception evolving in the country in the next 3 to 5 years, maybe?
Touch wood. When you and I talk next year or the year after, I'll be able to talk about the 4 and 5 year trend of, improving credit perception. We have seen significant improvement, especially around trust and knowledge of credit over the past few years. We've seen more consumers want to use financial institutions. So I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm hoping that through the initiatives that we're taking, the industry is taking, BSP is taking, that trust and knowledge of credit will continue to grow for the years to come. And I really hope that that's something that we can, that we can crack. And it's not just, you mentioned, older generation, your parents using apps. Obviously, young Filipinos are leading the way, but our parents, and our older friends and relatives are starting to use this too. And so we hope that trend will continue in the next few years.
I still hear people who are on the fence in getting their first credit card. It's something that I tell fresh graduates. I always tell them, as soon as they get their finances in order, they are able to budget and have a good idea of their cash flow. I always tell them to apply for a credit card because that starts your credit history, and that will be good down the line when you start to think about getting a loan and all. So that's a financial advice that not a lot of people hear. But in your case, any other advice that you could give people or Filipinos who are listening to this podcast who are hesitant to use credit, but they do want to improve their financial future?
So first of all, Fitz, I think the advice that you gave is spot on. And so I would definitely echo that, being young, and I was the same, graduating from, when I graduated from university, my parents told me the same thing, that even if you don't need, large loans now, and in fact, many of us were paying off student loans at the time, it's important to build a credit history so that when you do need those big purchases, especially for things like education, and a house or apartment or land, you need to have some credit history in order for the bank to give you a loan. And the best way to do that is by starting with something after university. So I would say, look, number one, start small. So pick a product that matches your budget and your needs, whether it's a credit card, whether it's a personal loan or an auto loan. Make sure you understand, the details like the payment terms. So what's the interest rate, what you're going to owe when. If you don't know how all that works, that's okay. Ask a friend who does, find the person that majored in finance or economics, or if your parents have a banker, have them explain it to you. Second one is pay on time every time. So payment history is one of the most important factors in building a good credit card. Even if it's small, even if you're borrowing 1,000 pesos or 500 pesos, your ability to pay that back in a timely fashion builds up that payment history. And third is, borrow within your means. So don't overuse credit beyond your repayment capacity. Credit should help you, not burden you, right? And if you reach that inflection point, okay, pause, right? Make sure you can pay down, the amount that you owe when it's due, and then reassess. And then finally, don't forget, especially when you're young, saving and budgeting are just as important. Building a habit of saving, even small amounts. The thing I like to do is, especially when I start out, is, have a separate bank account, which is just savings. Every time your salary comes in, whether it's once or twice a month, siphon off a percentage of that and just have it go straight into savings that you don't look at, you don't see, you don't even know that it's there. And then every month, every couple of weeks, you'll start to build up savings over time. Hopefully, according to our survey, at least almost 85% of the people we surveyed do plan to save more, which is great. So hopefully those are some of your listeners too.
That's right. And learning the habit of saving is a financial foundation. It's hard to build your wealth if you don't know how to save. So it all starts from there. And then once that's all taken care of, yeah, you can definitely explore all the other financial products out there, including credit, and learn how to use it properly, how to leverage it to take advantage of opportunities. Yeah, I guess that's all that I wanted to ask you, Peter. Any last words or final words that you'd like to say to our listeners?
Thanks for having me on the 80% podcast today, Fitz. Hello to all your listeners. Thanks for listening to TransUnion's Credit Perception Index for 2025. And this is part of what we do at TransUnion, trying to make information for good to help you, individual consumers and lenders, make those decisions. So thanks today. Thanks for the opportunity, Fitz.
Right. Thank you very much, Peter. If anyone is interested to learn more about the Credit Perception Index report that you had, is it available to the public?
Yes, it will be available to the public on our website.
If anyone wants to contact you, are you available online?
I'm on LinkedIn quite a lot professionally, so always available through there. And since I have the opportunity, we're doing a lot of hiring at TransUnion, and there's a lot of jobs on JobStreet and LinkedIn also. If you're interested in becoming part of the future of credit of the Philippines, you can also come join us.
Thank you very much. And of course, I'll put the links to TransUnion Philippines social media accounts and website on the episode description. So I hope all of you guys would check it out. And that's the end of our episode. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy what you heard or watch, then please subscribe, leave a review, and share this video podcast with your friends. You can also visit our official website, the80percentpodcast.com. That's it. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe.